Oh, hello there. Hydration is very important, especially if it's vodka. Just kidding. Or am I? Hey, everyone. I wanted to give this talk for a long time. The whole topic of health and wellness, generally speaking, doesn't really get enough attention. Probably because it's awkward to talk about. A lot of people don't want to kind of make themselves come across as weak or vulnerable or imperfect. It can get very personal, and naturally we tend to be a little bit more defensive and protective about things like that. So I get it. And there's also this stigma about mental health as well. Today's culture is really more about money and power and success and productivity. And, although all those things aren't bad in and of themselves, we often focus on them to the detriment of our own personal well-being. What is the cost of all those things? We forget about the individuals. We all know that the 2020s have pretty much sucked so far, and this pandemic especially has been horrible for countless reasons besides all the needless deaths that have occurred around the world. It has also taught me, and I think many others, of how connected we all are. Regardless of our politics or where we live, or our religions, or our points of views, or our gender identities, we're all connected and we all are in this together. I think, if anything, I feel that I owe this talk to you. I've been in the business for over 30 years. I've been fortunate to make a living doing what I love, making music. And I feel at this point in my career, my goal and my mission is to help lift people up. So that's what I'm really here to do. And I'm just going to share with you thoughts on how I personally have mentally survived the 2020s so far and haven't gotten completely crazy. And how I kind of come back every day sitting here in the studio and have this fresh start, and how I remain creative and focused and positive, all those things that I've learned along the way, and what I've learned from making many mistakes as well. So just think about it as like a tips for the journey thing. I'm going to talk about stuff from everything from sleep to socializing, from meditation to decluttering. All right, there's going to be a lot. All right, so let's get into it. I think the first natural place to start is to identify the problem. Why is this happening? Why is there so much anxiety and depression now? Why has anxiety and depression skyrocketed over 1,000% in the last 50 years? You would think that with all the advancements in technology and the world, that we'd be in a better place mentally. And we're not. We're in a worse place. What's going on? I found this quote from a favorite author of mine, very insightful. His name is Richard Rohr, in a book called Hope Against Darkness. Let me just read this to you real quick. Many of our social institutions, particularly government, law, education, the church, the military, family, and marriage, have been roundly discredited in the last 50 years. Each one is its own sad story of lost authority and focus. Unfortunately, this leaves only the media and the business world to communicate daily meaning for most people. Now, that is scary, and probably this is the first time in human history that we've tried to carry society on such tiny and fragile shoulders. This is certain to produce fragile people in a very unstable society. And I think that would describe the way society feels right now. Depression, the causes of depression, according to scientists, are many. But some of the key ones is that when we are disconnected, materialism, this leads to depression, this pressure to keep up, unrealistic expectations, need to be perfect or you're a failure. Even things like our diet and processed foods, it all is actually related to our mental health as well, not just our physical health. Even Facebook has been proven to cause depression and anxiety. I'm sure many of us can kind of relate to that. Also, a big cause of anxiety these days is sensory overload. Think about it. Think about now compared to 10 years ago, 20 years ago. We are constantly overloaded, all of our senses at all times. As great as the phones are, we really don't have this downtime, this mental downtime built into our days. It's too easy to just entertain ourselves in any moment where we would normally kind of daydream, whether we're sitting at a stoplight or in the bathroom. I mean, we constantly, right, are just pulling these things, and it's constant sensory overload, and it's causing problems. Facebook, politics, many religious institutions, the media, they're all pitting us against one another, which is horrible. And politics have become so personal and combative, especially in the last 4 years, 5 years. It's destroyed relationships, and it's polarized not only our friends and family, but our entire country. It really, we're getting destroyed from the inside. And then you throw the pandemic into this and human-caused climate change. Come on. It's easy to get overwhelmed. And look, it's not just you. We're all in this together. Okay? So, yeah, there's a lot. So enough about the problem. Let's talk about some solutions. Einstein had this wonderful quote, which I'd like to share. The most important decision we can make is whether we believe we live in a friendly or hostile universe. Think about that. I think the point here is that the solution is in here. It's in our perspectives. So let's talk about that. You see, we all have this lens that we see the world through, and no one's is perfectly clear. The question we need to ask ourselves is, what is my lens? And it will change, by the way. Do we believe now that, let's say, the world is trying to kill us and life is all about survival of the fittest and every woman and man for themselves? Or do we believe that life is an opportunity to bring your own light into the world, to help in your own circle, to unabashedly be ourselves, and to love as many people and help as many people as we can along the way? I think one big clue for how clear our lens is when we start to feel this sense of universal compassion and love and acceptance towards more and more people. This starts to naturally give us this sense of peace and removes a lot of anxiety, because we feel like we're all one, rather than this sense of we're always trying to win this battle somehow. It's us versus them, whoever them is. We're always trying to dominate. Our beliefs are right, your beliefs are wrong. Always trying to be on top. That brings this never-ending cycle of stress and anxiety and unhappiness and rejection and all those bad things that come with us, and wars, and I digress almost. So anyway, think about what your lens is. That is going to be one of the key factors that you see everything through. Now I'd like to offer a few words about mental resilience. I once heard a Navy SEAL who wrote a book about this say something to the effect of, when he goes into a difficult situation for some unknown period of time, he always changes his mindset to plan on it going on for a long time, not to hold his breath until it's over, buckling up for the long game. And I think we can really apply that, and I can certainly, to my life and to the way that I see the world. Rather than expecting that eventually, all these tough times are going to end, all the controversy and all the never-ending combative politics and wars and pandemics. Don't wait for it to be over. Just plan on it going for the long game, and just change our mindset to kind of exist in that, to accept it. There was an interview with a Buddhist who was asked, "What do you say when suffering comes into your life?" And his answer was, "Welcome." Accepting that life brings suffering allows us to surrender our need to control everything, which is incredibly freeing. Winston Churchill had a saying, "If you are going through hell, keep going." It reminds me of the Serenity Prayer, which is often associated with St. Francis. Actually, St. Francis didn't write it. It was written in 1932 by a Dr. Reinhold Niebuhr. I don't know if I'm saying that right. The prayer goes like this: God, give me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And now the most unexpected game changer for me. Drum roll, please. Meditation. Now wait, don't run away. Stay right there. Look, there's tons of science out there about the proven benefits of meditation. Let me just tell you the benefits that I've personally experienced within just 1 year. Right? Massive increase in creativity and confidence, better and more even mood, more energy, much more patience, better memory, the ability to think clearly under stress, and more. And the thing is, everybody notices it. It's not just in my own imagination. I am convinced that all the world's problems could be solved if everyone would take 20 minutes a day in silence and meditate. I'm serious. It's like unpeeling an onion in our mind and in our soul, and it reveals what's at the center, our true self. And when we can shed the ego and accept and celebrate who we truly are, our true self, that's when all the good stuff happens. So you're like, okay, Tom, great, meditation. I'm not sure what that really looks like. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you exactly what I do for 20 minutes every day, first thing in the morning. And yes, I'm doing this publicly. So a couple of pointers before we start. First of all, it's important that this is done every day, consistently, for 20 minutes a day. Better yet, 2 sessions a day, 20 minutes, 40 total. You have to do it in a location that's quiet without any distractions. I highly recommend that you use a meditation timer. You can easily find those on, an iPad, iPhone, or whatever. And I like setting a 10-minute interval right in the middle, so I kind of have this checkpoint mentally along the way that I'm kind of halfway through. You want to choose a position where you are sitting up, you are alert and comfortable. It doesn't matter if your feet are on the floor or if you're, cross-legged. Just be alert and comfortable. If you start to fall asleep, that basically means your body's tired and needs to sleep, so just go to sleep. You shouldn't feel tired and fall asleep. This is an alert but comfortable position that you can stay there and not move for 20 minutes. All right? Ready? Let's check it out. Oh, sorry, Mario. Having technical difficulties here. All right. So, centering prayer. Step 1. Step 1 is simply consenting to God's presence. Now, this isn't some kind of particular religious practice. This is much more of a universal mindset. This is just consenting to the engine of all creation, the creator of all things. If you're not religious, you don't believe at all in God, then maybe it's as simply as just consenting to the universe itself, or this belief that we are part of something bigger than us. So, consenting to God's presence, that is the intention. Step 2 is a sacred word, and the only point of the sacred word is to bring us back to the intention. Doesn't really matter what the sacred word is. It can be, peace, love, Jesus, light, anything that allows you to say it and bring you back to the intention. Okay, step 3 is when you start to focus on something, when some thought comes into your mind, all you do is you just come back to the intention using the sacred word. Now, if it happens every 2 seconds, you don't have to keep saying the sacred word. It's just something to bring you back. You might wander for a few minutes and then realize what's happening, and then you just say, the word, and you come back to it. And it's all silent. It's all done within your mind. Okay, just a few quick tips here. 1, there is no failure in doing this. There's no way to mess it up. This isn't the kind of thing where it's like, oh, I did it great today, and, yesterday or whatever, I didn't do so well because my mind drifted. It was so busy. That's not the point. The point is to just keep letting those thoughts go. There's no way to mess it up. All right? It's a success every time, unless you intentionally come in here and say, I'm not going to consent. I'm just going to try to figure out a math problem. All right. Maybe one way to visualize the idea of consenting. You know what I do sometimes is I imagine just like me being like a baby and just falling helpless and completely trusting into my parents' arms. That's what I mean by kind of consent. It's just like, let it go. Nothing else matters right now. Everything's going to be taken care of. All right. That's what I mean by just complete surrender and consenting. Also, you might want to compare this idea of your consciousness as a river, and thoughts might come onto the scene like boats. And the only point of this whole thing is not to jump in the boat. You don't want to engage the thought. You can acknowledge the thought and let it go. Some days there might be a couple of boats here and there. Some days there's going to be a whole, barrage of boats coming down. That's okay. Every day is going to be different. This practice is sometimes going to be peaceful. Quite often it might be peaceful, but sometimes it might be uncomfortable or unpleasant. As you unpeel this onion, you're going to go deeper and deeper and closer to your true self, your true center, and there might be some stuff in there that you need to get through first, and that's okay. That's part of the process. When I was doing this, particularly at the beginning, it was hard for me to get over this feeling that I was wasting my time. It really does kind of feel like a waste of time when you're doing it. It's not like when you finish, you're like, oh, look, I have such clarity and visions and ideas. It's not the way it works. You see the benefits when you're not doing it, kind of like working out. It's not when you're in the gym, it's over the week that you're resting and you start to see some growth. So I can assure you that you will start to see changes in your life. I started noticing things. Some friends of mine started noticing things as soon as 2 weeks. But some of the most deep, lasting changes for me happened after a year of doing it. Anyway, so just to pretend I'm doing it for a second, it's not going to be much because it's all silent, right? But this is kind of what it looks like. So I'll just talk out loud as my internal thoughts go by. So, 1. Put on my headphones, I hit my little timer, it goes ding, and I go, okay, breathe, relax. Okay, I'm now, I now consent to your presence, God. I'm consenting to all loving God and Creator. And my sacred word is light. Okay. That's it. And it looks like this for 20 minutes. But what's really happening is I cannot believe I'm doing this publicly in front of an audience. My career is over. I'm going to let that go. So that's all there is to it. As I said before, it's simple, but it's not easy. All I can almost guarantee you is if you do this on a regular basis, daily, it will be a life changer for you. So maybe give it a try. Or as Yoda might say, do or do not. There is no try. The next critically important topic to bring up here is getting enough sleep. The benefits of getting enough sleep are truly life-changing, and there's more and more recent science that is revealing other benefits that we didn't even realize. There's still people out there who brag about how little sleep they get and how they can still function. I think that argument is getting really old, and it's starting to reveal itself as not being true. It does catch up with you, and especially as you get older and older, it's not something that you can keep up, and it has a lot of detrimental effects. People will often ask me, how do you get so much done? I mean, do you stay up late? Do you push through? My secret is that I stick to a schedule. I do not stay up late. I do not pull all-nighters, because I find that every extra hour that I work later and later, it steals hours from the next day. Even worse, it steals more hours than I spent working late. So that extra hour of work makes me lose 2 hours the next day. Conversely, if I stick to a schedule, my productivity goes up tenfold. When I'm working, I'm always very, very productive in a short period of time. So getting enough sleep is paramount to productivity and creativity, because you're at your best, you're at your sharpest, you have the most energy, both physically and mentally. So then the question becomes, well, how much sleep are you supposed to get? Science seems to show most recently and more conclusively that 8 hours is the minimum. Not 7, not 6, even though you can function, 8 hours is the minimum, and that seems to be the magic number that offers the most health benefits, because science has shown that even 7 hours can increase your chances of certain cancers and all this stuff. So I'm going to stop there with the science. If you want to learn more about this, which I suggest you do, I would suggest checking out a talk by Matt Walker on TED called Sleep is Your Superpower. So check that out. It's really eye-opening. Another key factor in maximizing my physical health and mental well-being each day is nutrition. I know it's not a very exciting topic, but these days it's even more important than most of us realize. The United States in particular has a serious food supply problem. There are just too many genetically modified foods, there's too many chemicals being used and pesticides, and there is too much processed food in our daily consumption. The secret to having our bodies work as they were intended to work is by eating the rainbow foods. This allows our bodies to work at maximum capacity, to heal itself, and to rid itself of toxins. Now, I hear you. Who eats the rainbow of foods every day? That's next to impossible, not to mention super expensive and time-consuming. So for me, I have whole food supplements every day, like whole food in a pill. Also, when I get my physical, my blood test, I'm always tested for vitamin D and B12. I'm usually deficient in those, so my doctor advises me to have a certain amount of vitamin D every day and time release B12, which gives me more sustained energy throughout the day. So time release is really key, and I found that to be incredibly beneficial for me. Green leafy vegetables are really important. Like the chlorophyll in our food, which you don't get enough of green, is the magic stuff that fights a lot of diseases, including cancer. So it's really great whenever possible to have salad, even with a meal. I actually grow my own lettuce indoors. I love to garden, and I have this cool aeroponic garden that I can show you, where I have lettuce from it every day. Check this out. So this is my all year round indoor garden. This is an aeroponic garden that automatically lights itself and waters itself. This is what I have every day. I have like a salad every day. Right off the plant here, you could just like eat this. This is, it's great. You can't get healthier than this. This is literally better than organic food. So I put all my green leafy vegetables in here, and that's it. And then, every day I get bowls like this. Pretty amazing. Okay, so that's enough about nutrition. If you want to learn more about this, I would check out this video by a Dr. Tamara Sachs called Living in a Toxic World, and I'll post that at the end of this video in the reference. It has a lot of useful and eye-opening information about this subject. Another key factor in our physical and mental health that we gloss over too easily is, of course, exercise. But the science once again proves over and over that there are so many benefits. One of them, of course, is boosting our mood. I admit I am very inconsistent with this one. I haven't seemed to quite master the consistency of it. But I do know one thing. The secret to it is how to have fun doing it. I got a good tip from my brother-in-law, which really helped me be consistent over the winter, which is to set up my recumbent bike right in front of the big screen in my basement, and then I can catch up on some gaming while I'm exercising. So this makes the time pass way quicker, and it also allows me to catch up on some of my gaming. So again, the key is just to have fun so you can do it consistently. Another unexpected tool that I've been using recently that has been proven to counteract anxiety, depression is, believe it or not, taking cold showers. But seriously, I tried it and started noticing some benefits within 2 weeks. I put up here some of the, the scientific evidence showing benefits like stimulating the immune system and increasing alertness and preventing colds and freeing the mind and the metabolism increase. But the one I really want to hone in here on is the stimulation of antidepressant hormones So it really does actually help with anxiety and depression, believe it or not. So just try it once in a while, mix it up. Instead of just only hot showers, try some cold ones. And if you can't take the freezing cold ones, then maybe you try something that's, as cold as you can handle it. Because science has also determined that having a heart attack can have detrimental effects as well. I can truthfully say that the only way I made it through COVID with the majority of my sanity still intact was thanks to my fun crew. A small group of friends and family that we saw each and every week without fail, just to get together, have a few drinks, have a few laughs, and enjoy each other's company. Human beings are social creatures. Yes, even composers. It's a necessity. It's actually not a preference. We actually need socialization. Even the most introverted of us need that social interaction. And, one of the silver linings that I have found of COVID has been the normalization of Zoom calls or just video calls in general. I like the idea that now when I have a call scheduled with anybody, even colleagues in business calls, the majority of them end up being a video call. It's just almost assumed that it's a video call, which I think is fantastic because it really adds to that sense of connection. And I think that's wonderful. It's way better than just a regular, phone call. I also love doing this and connecting with my students and mentees. Connecting with each other, helping each other is really what brings us joy. So find your tribe and socialize as much as you can. And speaking of human needs, one human need is a need for consistency. Now, in this world of complete chaos that we are currently living in, it's more important than ever. One way to bring consistency into our lives and what I do in my life is that I have strict routines. Every day I have my routines. And for me, these routines bring me a sense of control and peace of mind. So you're probably asking, well, what are your routines, Tom? That's kind of a personal question, but I'll share it. So first thing in the morning, I will make my bed. Now this is something I haven't done my whole life. I remember this talk years ago that a Navy SEAL named Admiral McRaven gave at a commencement speech. And he said one thing that really left an impression with me. He was talking about the benefit of making your bed in the morning and how he trains his soldiers. And the idea is that when you make your bed first thing in the morning, you've already accomplished the first task of the day. And for me, it gives me this sense of accomplishment and momentum, and it tricks my brain or convinces me that I'm in control. No matter how busy things are, I have time to make my bed. So it kind of just shows me that I can complete the rest of the day in the same way, one task at a time. So once that's done, I just do my meditation, the 20 minutes. Then I'll have my morning decaf coffees. I'll have a chat with my wife. We catch up. Then I'll sometimes check quickly my emails on my phone to see if there's any emergency stuff. I'll quickly sort through. I finally have a zero inbox. I do. It's true. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. I fill my large cup here with water and I go to the studio. The phone stays in the kitchen. I do not bring phones into the studio. I do not take interruptions. I don't take phone calls. I deal with my top priorities first. I work right till lunchtime. I'll take a little break. I'll usually watch a TED Talk during lunch. It kind of just changes, my focus and enriches my knowledge. Then I go back to the studio. I'll work till dinner. After dinner, I will take family time. We'll catch up and maybe watch a movie. Unless I really have some very pressing deadlines, then I will come back to the studio a little bit, but I try to avoid that at all costs. And then once I wrap up the evening, usually around 9 p.m.-ish, I will make my way upstairs. I start relaxing, getting ready for bed. I will watch something calming on my little iPad with my headphones, like a Star Trek or something like that. And then I will do, usually some nonfiction reading, like I enjoy reading some spiritual books or self-help books. I also, at the same time, I use an app that has this brainwave thing, which induces your brain to start to slow down, get you more into the patterns of sleep pattern. And I find that kind of accelerates my relaxation. So by the time after, 15, 20 minutes, I'm starting to yawn already. So once I finish it up, I'll do my prayer and then I go to bed and do it all over again. By the time I hit that pillow, I am ready to go to sleep. And that whole routine really kind of trains my brain and my body, almost like an athlete, to be like a machine. And this way I can kind of do it every day. And each day when I start, I'm like ready to go at full battery capacity. I'm not kind of catching up from the day before. So I think that's really a key to surviving the long game. Early in the pandemic, I discovered a book that really helped me appreciate the psychological benefits of decluttering. It's called The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up by Marie Kondo. I mean, we all know that, the more decluttered your environment is, the more decluttered your mind is. But she takes it a step further. She goes so as far to suggest that really the only things we should keep are things that bring us joy. Now, that might sound a bit extreme and unrealistic, but she's serious about it. I mean, she applies it across the board to everything you own, including your clothes. So I decided to give it a shot, and I remember going through all the clothes that I owned, pulling them out of every single closet, every drawer, every nook and cranny all at once, and putting in a big pile and just going through categorically, just your pants, just your shirts, and whatever. And it was pretty amazing. I loved it. I even took it so far as to reinvent the way I folded clothes so I could arrange my entire wardrobe all year round so that if I stood in the right place, I could see every piece of clothing that I owned in every drawer and in my entire closet. And I kind of got a kick out of it, and I kind of enjoy it. I enjoy folding my t-shirts. Seriously, check this video out. Now, I know this is probably the last thing you imagine seeing at Game SoundCon, how I fold my shirts, but you need to see this, okay? So this is just a regular t-shirt, okay? Now watch, all you gotta do is this. Put it down flat, on your bed, anything, table, doesn't matter. T-shirt. Ready? Like this. Flip it over here. 1, 2. Okay, now I have a t-shirt standing up vertically that I can easily arrange in my drawers and see every one of my shirts. So you could see this drawer here, how I have all these things kind of organized and visible. I can find anything I'm looking for, and you just slip them in like this and slip out what you want. I don't know, it just gives me such a sense of zen and calm seeing it like this. I feel like we're getting to know each other so well, don't you? Now let's talk about email clutter. Email clutter is an epidemic around the world. So many of us are constantly battling our inboxes, right? We use them as a to-do list, and it seems we can never quite catch up. Even if we do for a short period of time, inevitably it's going to win. And, when I read about the most effective people, how they use their time, the most effective people always live their days intentionally. They don't react to things. And that's a problem with email, is that there's this constant influx of emails, and it's really hard not to keep reacting to them, right? So I finally developed a system that allows me to start and end the day with a zero inbox. Now, I haven't had a zero inbox since probably 1991, when email was invented, and I got like one email a week. So I use a tool called SaneBox in conjunction with a disciplined system of how I sort and arrange my emails. SaneBox does a lot of the heavy lifting, like a filter on steroids. And then what I'm left with is just emails that I can either act on immediately in like less than 5 seconds, things that I have to assign to a task list, or things that I have to star in my starred list that I can chip away with later in the day when I intentionally go to my emails to kind of work on them. And getting rid of that clutter and that endless sense of never being able to catch up is liberating. And it completely helps remove this sense of anxiety and just stress. So I highly, highly recommend it. I'll probably release some video that goes into more detail showing what I do. But really living your days intentionally is the key, right? Not reacting and getting interrupted throughout the day. Another important technique that helps me is planning my days in advance. Everything for me is scheduled. I live by my calendar. I've stopped answering the phone during the day so I don't just react to things that just serendipitously happen, unless it's an emergency, of course. Everything is scheduled no later than the evening before. And I use a tool called Calendly to help me do this. You can see on the screen there's just a typical week for me. All those purple blocks is just like my calendar. And this way I am not overbooked, I'm not underbooked, and I have things arranged so I can plan on how to get my work done and all my deadlines. Having Calendly for me is almost like having a personal assistant, because I can create certain links that allow people to schedule events when I have availability. So I highly recommend checking that out. Moving on, Desmond Tutu had this unusual but very wise saying where he said, "There is only one way to eat an elephant, a bite at a time." Now, Desmond Tutu's diet aside, there is a lot of wisdom in that. And it's this idea of taking things one thing at a time. Everything that seems daunting and overwhelming and even impossible can be accomplished gradually by just taking on a little bit at a time. I like to say I'm often spinning plates. And really what works for me is that I will dedicate a portion of my day or an entire day to single tasks. Okay? And when I combine this strategy with pre-planning my schedule in advance, it really helps me puzzle everything in that I need to do. So again, it's really about doing one thing at a time. Try it. All right, now let's talk about something else that we often don't do very well. That is making ourselves happy. Why is it there's this stigma that we feel guilty when it comes to treating ourselves or being our own best friend? So let me just share with you a few pieces of advice that have really worked well for me. Learn to be your own best friend. Listen to your internal dialogue. What are those words that you hear inside there? Are they things that are encouraging you or, putting you down? Like, oh, you're not good enough to do that, Do they sound like a good friend talking to you, or do they sound like an antagonist? Just listen to those voices. And treat yourself sometimes. You work hard, you got to play hard. So sometimes, go out there and treat yourself. Get yourself something nice, get an ice cream sundae, whatever. Once in a while, just give yourself a treat. Create a space you enjoy. So many people have commented in, my studio, they see it or hear on video and they're like, oh, what a beautiful, is that real? Is that couch? Yeah, it is. It's real. My advice is, if you're going to sit in a room by yourself all day, you might as well enjoy the space. So create a space that brings you some joy and that you enjoy spending time in. Also, like Marie Kondo, only buy things that bring you joy. There's too much clutter in our lives, and we tend to accumulate, at least I do. So, try to get rid of all the things that you don't really need and just focus on the things that bring you joy and get rid of everything else. Here's another piece of advice that I think has worked wonders in my life over the years, and I offer it to you as well. Learn to just say no a lot. Learn to say no to things that don't work for you, that don't bring you happiness. There's this saying that Derek Sivers, the author and former owner of CD Baby, said. He had this expression that it's either hell yes or no. And I really like that. Think about a situation where you have a choice to make. Someone asks you to do something or volunteer for something or whatever. If you don't have this overwhelming sense of, yeah, I want to do that, then just say no. Now, obviously, that doesn't apply to, family obligations or things that are important to help people, but as far as what we voluntarily take on, I think too many of us want to please everybody else, and we do that at the detriment to ourselves. So learn to say no a little bit more often. And then I would say it's a good idea to have some passion projects. It's usually a thing that we often don't do enough for ourselves, myself included. During the pandemic, it was a little easier, I think, for us to have passion projects. I did two things in my basement. One of them was that I've always wanted to have this recreation of that old Star Wars video game arcade cabinet that was, out in the 80s. So I took it upon myself with the help of a wonderful engineer who designed some plans to create this cabinet from scratch, literally like having wood and having it cut and then assembling it together. And so look at this cabinet that I made here. This is the photos of what I was able to build over many, many months. And it's just so cool. I mean, every time I go down there and I see it, I'm like, that is awesome. It's like, brings me back to being like a little kid. So coming back around, just think about making yourself happy. I don't think we do that enough for ourselves. So be good to yourself. Yourself will thank you. Here's another one. Learn to relax. What is it that helps you relax, right? What takes you to your happy place? For me, I love to garden. I find it very centering. It allows me to daydream. It connects me with nature and just creation in general. I really, really enjoy it. Another thing I remember that really helped me during the first 6 months of the pandemic was playing Animal Crossing. I had never played that before. I'm sure many of you know it. And I just found it very relaxing and therapeutic, surprisingly. I don't normally play games like that. But it was really fun. I mean, you can just create your own little happy place and talk to all the happy creatures and always be in debt. But whatever it is, find what helps you relax. Maybe you love to paint. Maybe you love to read. The point here is that not only do you owe it to yourself, but you'll find that you will function better and do better work. So your clients are going to benefit from it as well. Take care of yourself, learn to treat yourself a little bit, and learn to relax. So as I begin to wrap this up, I do want to mention something on a bit more of a serious note. Sometimes it's time to bring the car for a checkup. And so I'd like to remove this stigma of speaking to a professional, going to a psychotherapist, for example. There is this stigma about it that, like you have to be crazy or, just this weak, sad, broken individual. And that's completely untrue. I have seen in so many instances with friends and family that those who have gone, even those who you wouldn't consider having some kind of serious problem, have come away with huge benefits of it. Sometimes you really just need someone who knows how to listen and knows how to ask the right questions, particularly when we are in a time of very high anxiety and this great deal of distress and uncertainty. So you might want to consider that. Another thing to consider, even if you do everything right that we've kind of talked about here, sometimes we have a chemical situation, a chemical imbalance. Something maybe might not be working exactly the way it should in our brain. For example, extended anxiety over years and years and decades can literally damage the brain. It can damage neurons and receptors that absorb certain chemicals like serotonin that help us function and have an even mood. So you might want to consider talking to your doctor and seriously about this and see if you are a candidate, if you feel you really need it. To talk about things that are, for example, like a serotonin uptake inhibitor. These are things that help return our body to the way it was meant to function, to compensate for something. But what's really encouraging is that some of the things we've talked about here, especially like the meditation, science has revealed that the brain can actually heal itself. Now, this is amazing news because up to only recently, doctors have agreed that, once you have any kind of damage in your brain, that's it. But that's not true. It's not true, and that's a wonderful reality. So anyway, I just want to offer that to you to not feel like you're alone or you're overwhelmed and I do all these things, but I'm still not myself. You might want to consider these things as well. Woo! So we talked about a lot of intense stuff here today. Let's just do a quick review of my own little mental survival checklist. Meditation and prayer, plenty of sleep, taking care of your health and nutrition, embracing the marathon and accepting when bad things happen, seeing beauty and good in everyone and everything as much as we can, socializing and always having something fun to look forward to, strict routines, decluttering, scheduling, and a zero inbox, doing one thing at a time, and make fun and relaxation a daily goal. And of course, if need be, speaking to a professional and to your doctor. So, I hope you found this talk helpful. Most everything I shared here today has been life-changing for me, and I hope it can be for you as well. You owe the world your true self, and we need you here for the long game. So get out there and make the world a better place by doing what you love to do. Thank you.